Robert is a great friend, and he tries to hoodwink me to work in the archives that they've established in Cannon County all the time. And I'll tell the story and I'll shut up, but the archive for Cannon County was right above where my office was as director of schools in Cannon. And a lot of time I'd just get a little hectic and things going on, so I just wanted to take a little walk. So I'd go up there pretending to go to the county executive's office and then go to the county finance office, and I'd make a quick right instead of left, and I'd go see Robert up at the archives. Just so I could get some history talk instead of all this school stuff talk.
No kidding.
But Robert's a great friend, and we welcome Robert to us. Anybody else brand new? Okay.
Would that be Robert's Rules of Order?
Robert's Rules of Order. He's the original one, yeah. I'm sorry, what's your name? What's your name, sir? Oh, it's Mike. Mike, you've changed a little bit on the time, so I think you were a reporter for the Smithville Review last time. Okay, so the last time I saw you, Mike, which we've got some mutual friends. Well, I don't know about that. I'm not been up on Snow Hill Road in a while, so. Mike, good to have you. It's always a pleasure. All right, anybody else? So make sure we get you as you come back along. We'll get it started. If you need a pencil, we'll find a pen. We've got one, so just holler at me. And tonight I'd like to, as we're going through our series, and each one of you should have got our email. I've got some paper copies I'll share at the end of the business part of our meeting when Graham finishes up. But I've got all of our guest speakers. We've got 2 spots available right now, so we're filling up, which is great. We love it. And at this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Graham Perry. Graham is a former colleague of Mr. Bobby White at the Tennessee State Museum, and then Graham left the Tennessee State Museum and now works for the Tennessee Historical Commission.
Yes.
Where our friend Becky also works part-time.
Mm-hmm.
That I saw Friday. But Graham has been with it. And what's your title, Graham? Tennessee Cemetery, Historic Cemetery?
Historic Cemetery Preservation Specialist.
All right.
They had to come up with something. So.
And that is a mouthful.
Yes, it is
Absolutely.
a mouthful.
So we welcome you, Graham, and thank you for coming from all the way from Nashville to DeKalb County, and we appreciate it. Melanie has been in one of your seminars right before.
And then I went to the Overton project when you went, and I went down there. Is it Overton? We did cleaning last fall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So,
Yep, so I was down there.
so we've got.
I have so many cemetery meetings and things in my head. I have to sort through them and figure
And Graham,
out which ones are
we've
which.
got cemetery gurus in the room.
I'm sure you do.
So afterwards, we'll give you plenty of time. We'll take as much time as you want for question and answers, and maybe some unique situations in DeKalb County that we want to talk about.
That's exactly
All right,
what
without further ado, we'll turn it over to Mr. Graham Perry.
Okay.
Thank you, Graham.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am Graham Perry, as they said, and I worked at the Tennessee State Museum, also worked at the Tennessee Historical Society for a while, and now I'm at the Tennessee Historical Commission. I am not an attorney, first of all. I will tell you this, I have to preface this speech with that because it's about law, and people start coming up to me and asking me about attorney things. And ever since we've lost we have a new director now, and I've kind of been cut back on some of my legal stuff, so I've got to be real careful, but that's okay. But anyway, when I first walked into the Tennessee Historical Commission, the first day I walked into, they had a major desecration in Rutherford County, and I didn't know anything about any law or anything like that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to learn right now. So I briefed myself for that particular situation, but I really dug down and started trying to find in Tennessee law and all the nooks and crannies where there's anything about cemeteries, and I've just collected those things. And when people call me about it, when they need some kind of, they call me about desecration or whatever, I can send them, I was like, well, here's the desecration law, and I can't, I can give them suggestions. I was like, I just can't give suggestions as a lawyer. I can just give them, suggestions about how to handle the situation that they've got. But anyway, so I like to have pictures in my PowerPoints just so that you can see, but I mean, you get to cemeteries, as you know, I mean, you probably have a lot of them out here that aren't marked, or maybe pits in the ground, or whatever. But you find all types of graves out there. I mean, anything from well marked, and here's one for a Revolutionary War veteran, and somebody went to great lengths to make sure that was, I'm sure that was an expensive stone at one time. But then you've got people that outline their grave maybe with cinder blocks. A lot of African American cemeteries are marked in all sorts of various ways. But so, Tennessee law overview. Well, strong points. We have a Family Graves Protection Act, which I think Steve McDaniel was the guy that got that passed. But anyways, Tennessee Code Annotated 46.8, and it's great that we have a family graves protection thing, but we're still trying to figure out what it means because a lot of the stuff's not defined. We'll talk about that. Also, the weak point about that is many don't read it before taking action, hence the desecration from the bulldozer in Rutherford County that day. Relocation process is clear. It's in TCA 46.4. But relocation is expensive, so is non-compliance worth the risk? Now that I'm here, no. I will tell you that right now because I try to keep on top of this stuff. Tax incentives exist for cemeteries as well, but the benefits are tiny and they're often reported incorrectly. We'll talk about that as well. Desecration law is clear in TCA 46.1.313, but Tennessee Code Annotated 46.1.313 has to do with commercial cemeteries, and the others are exempt. But there is a criminal penalty for desecration in TCA 39, Chapter 17. It was not well defined either, but I think that the legislature right now is fixing that. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that that law will pass. As far as desecration, enforcement is the big issue with desecration, and we will talk about that as to why. And as far as the criminal penalties, they're defined in TCA 39, but they're not in 46. So in the cemetery code, it doesn't tell you what the penalties are. You have to go to a whole other section to find them. Hines versus Tennessee, 1911, is a precedent that strengthens the law. The big problem with it is visitation is not in Title 46, and it is actually listed out in Hines. And the problem is a lot of people say, well, that's an old court case, from 1911. That didn't count. Well, it does. In fact, it counts all across the nation. We should be proud of Tennessee because we have Hines versus Tennessee. So, TCA 46. The sections of it are, it goes into termination of use of land as a cemetery is what it's for. In 46.1.101, it states that a cemetery has to be abandoned, neglected, or threatened. We'll talk about what those mean. 46.4.102 talks about, it defines who interested parties are, and interested parties are families, generally speaking, but they can be government employees and agents of family members and government as well. The process for termination is in 103, and it's very detailed. Our office, Tennessee Historical Commission, as of 2019, we have to post the petitions. So if somebody is leaving a grave and they haven't posted a petition on our site, they have broken the law. It's called corpse abuse. So just letting you know. 46.4.104, it spells out the provisions for reinterment, and we'll talk about those. As far as the Family Burial Grounds Protection Act, TCA 46.8, 46.8.103 states that a landowner has a duty to protect a cemetery on his or her property. What that means, it's not defined, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And what is protection? I don't know, let's see. 46.8.103A states that a cemetery, a known cemetery, must be on a deed of transfer. I'm not sure how recent that is, but as you can imagine, historically speaking, a lot of cemeteries fell off of deeds and things like that for various reasons. Some of them are nefarious and some aren't. But now, when somebody, even if you transfer it to like a family member or something like that, it's got to be on the deed of transfer. 468103B, it defines a protection boundary around graves. We'll talk about that. And 468103C says, if you don't like it, see TCA 464. So I will go into 46.1 first. Title 46 is the entirety of cemetery law, with the exceptions of the things I found elsewhere. So it is a very large chapter. 46.1 is, for some reason, it's just about commercial cemeteries, and then they just decided that they wouldn't deal with the other ones, which is what I'm dealing with now. But fortunately, some other laws were passed.
So question.
Yes.
In that regard, so you've answered one question. The other question is, so Indian cemeteries are not even considered under this, are they?
They actually are, and the Department of Archaeology, I defer to them on Indian cemeteries. Even historic ones, even though I have them mapped out and everything like that, when it comes down to historic Indian graves or prehistoric Indian graves, I leave that to archaeology, and I work together.
When
No,
we're
it is
talking
not.
about cemetery law, that's not under here. That's the archaeology.
It does, but these laws do apply.
Okay.
Yes, they're considered actual graves, so, and they are actual graves, by gosh. So a cemetery is defined as any land or structure in this state dedicated to and used or intended to be used for interment of human remains. That intended to be used is a big one, because I've had situations, I had one up in, I guess it was in Putnam County several years ago, and there was a guy who was like yahooing his tractor through the cemetery so he could get to his barn, and there was only one grave in the cemetery, so they said, oh, well, this cemetery is not real and it doesn't matter, and there's only one grave and I'm 10 feet from it. Well, the family owned the cemetery, and the family was trying to keep the guy from doing that, and it was their right to do so because the family were technically the owners. In fact, they set the cemetery up. It didn't matter that the cemetery was an acre and too big and only had one grave. It's a cemetery, and you still have to go by cemetery law for that. One grave in Tennessee equals a cemetery. In Arkansas, I think it's over 4, and I'm not sure what 4 or less is in Arkansas. Cemetery can even have no graves. Intention of use is all that is needed. Cemetery purposes. I love reading this like I don't know, like a scholar or something. Any and all things requisite or necessary for or incident or convenient to the establishment, maintenance, management, operation, improvement, and conduct of the cemetery, the preparation of the premises for interment, and the interment of the human dead. That's very important. It doesn't say pets. And care, preservation, and embellishment of cemetery property. So, let's come to 46.4, termination of use of land as a cemetery. This law was passed just after World War II, I guess, when development was really starting to kick off. 46.4.101 defines the purpose of the act. Is the cemetery, what you have to do is you have to petition a chancery court. I always get chancery circuit backwards in my brain for some reason. But you have to petition a chancery court, and you have to prove to them that a cemetery is abandoned, neglected, or the surrounding area is inconsistent with the proper reverence for the deceased. Abandoned is kind of a weird thing because, like for example, historically speaking, the Tennessee Historical Commission and other commissions like this consider something abandoned if nobody's visited it in 50 years. Well, how are you ever going to know that? I don't know. Some people think, oh, wow, look, this cemetery grew up really humongous and there's like all this trees and everything and it's just a mess, so it's abandoned. Well, okay, well, it's neglected. I was like, okay, well, a year ago I have a picture of this cemetery and it's completely fine. So what happens is Mother Nature does not, she doesn't play by the rules. So, and stuff in Tennessee tends to grow up really quickly. 464102 defines interested parties, can be family members, relatives, and anyone having a right of easement to the cemetery. That considers some government people as well. And this applies to all cemeteries in Tennessee, including the commercial ones. 464103, actions and proceedings. Well, if you want to move some graves, step one, check to see if you really own the cemetery first. You may not. That is something we're going to talk about because it's confusing. Step two, the complainant must first publish the notice of intent for moving the graves using press sources common to the county. As you can imagine, this can be loaded because, a long time ago we had newspapers, but guess what? Now we have internet. And so it's kind of confusing, but what I always say to people who are trying to relocate graves, just cover your rear. Do everything as well as you can so that people won't come back, because they will come back, and I've had it happen. Step three, Chancery Court must then be contacted to petition for termination. The remaining interested parties are considered defendants. And the attorneys are supposed to go and practice due diligence to find family members. I've caught people not doing that before, and they've gotten in trouble. Even though I'm not an attorney, okay, I'm just letting you know that. Step four, the petition must be filed with the Tennessee Historical Commission and posted on the THC website. Actually, what the law says is either a notice or the petition. Most people send me both. And I actually read them. There's nothing in my job description that says I have to read those. I'm just supposed to post them. But I look at it as reading it over to help the people that are involved and to make sure that no shenanigans are going on. 464104, judgments and decrees, termination or removal. Well, the the Chancery Court will determine the outcome based on evidence tied to 464101. In other words, if you prove one of these three things up there, not all of them, but one of those three things, removal can proceed. Now, what is interesting is one of the reasons why we try to post things and publish things and to try to get the attorneys to practice due diligence to find family members is because now just because a family member protests doesn't mean the grave's not going to be removed, okay? But they need to have that chance. And sometimes, and I've had this happen several times, where when a family member has been informed that a cemetery is being relocated, they've actually been able to work together with the relocator and to get some kind of, things in their favor. I mean, okay, if you're going to move this grave, can we move it to this cemetery? Can we, just things like that. And I always encourage really nice conversation between people, even if they're in opposition. So, TCA 48, Family Burial Grounds Protection. In TCA 468101, the purpose is intended to provide notice to buyers of property with known burial grounds and grave sites. It's impossible to know an unknown one because you can see it. Right? Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that those aren't cemeteries and the law still don't apply. It just means that, you have to do due diligence. 468103, it says a landowner has a duty to protect graves or crypts. Disturbances are prohibited and transfer of remains. The problem is it doesn't say what a duty to protect means. I get calls all the time, well, shouldn't that landowner, shouldn't he build a fence around the cemetery for me so it's protected? I'm like, no, but the family can. You have the right to do that as a family member. Do they need to build a fence to keep cattle off of it? Yes, I do, and I've handled some of those. The owner must ensure the cemetery is on the deed prior to sale or transfer, and it defines the prohibited area. You have to leave a grave alone within 10 feet or 5 feet from a crypt. So if you're doing construction, if you're 9 feet to a grave, you've broken the law, and we've had that happen as well sometimes. Notifies owners that there's an option and a process for removal. So if you don't like 46.8, see 46.4 and you can petition for relocation. Criminal offenses. 3917.3. TCA 3917.3.11 talks about desecration of honored places or flags. Cemeteries are directly mentioned in that. I mean, they're one of the features of that. A person may not desecrate a place of worship or burial, and it is a Class E felony. And as I always tell people when they call me up, they say, man, somebody desecrated 35 graves. I was like, oh good, that's 35 counts at $2,500 a piece. That's what I would go after them for. They did it. TCA 3917.3.12, corpses and abuse. Well, it's a Class E felony to do corpse abuse. And I always like to point out that with these felonies, you lose the right to vote. So if you're a big voting person and love to vote, don't do this stuff. Oops. So, what do I do if you see desecration, report it to the local police as soon as possible. You used to be able to report it to me and I could report it, but I don't think I can anymore. So there you go. I think if I go to the site and I see the desecration, I can report it. But I can't just do it based on a phone call from you. So, and that's what I'm going to suggest if you call me anyway. It's like, yeah, you need to go to the police first thing. Now, where we have a problem is local law enforcement, especially in remote areas, are not familiar with the cemetery law, and they don't exactly know what to do. And one of the persistent problems I run into is people will say, the police department will say, oh, well, that's a civil matter. We don't have to go out there. I was like, no, it's in Title 36. Title 36 is the criminal code. You have to go out there and you have to file a report, whether you like it or not. So I have to do that very nicely because I don't want law enforcement against me.
No.
I want them on my side. And I've had a lot of really good experiences with law enforcement. So you have to contact the county court also to notify them of the desecration. These entities must uphold Tennessee law. If they refuse, call the regional DA and notify me. If the regional DA doesn't act, call me and we'll try to figure out a way for you to complain to the Attorney General. Corpse abuse. Well, accidental disinterment. Oh, well, if you're just accidental, you should just be able to keep going, right? No. You stop work immediately. You call the police and the health department. Remember, you may have found a murder victim as well, so please don't be an accessory to a murder. Don't start, well, here's a murder victim, I'm just going to plow it up and now it's disappeared. Yeah, don't do that. Also call the Tennessee Department of Archaeology. They should be notified also. And Phil Hodge is the state archaeologist. There are other people there that is just as well, but Phil is on the, we have a cemetery committee, and I'll talk about that a little bit as far as my job goes, but Phil is on the cemetery committee, and of course the Department of Archaeology is really, really good about following up on things. If you see intentional disinterment, it doesn't matter if you're a family member or not, call the police. And I have done that too. TCA 68.550A, disinterment and reinterment. Wait a minute. We just had a law in TCA 46 that had something to do with that. What's this? Well, when you call the health department, this stuff applies. 68.550A, authorization for disinterment or reinterment in cases of movement of cemeteries or parts of cemeteries or for reuniting families shall be required prior to disinterment of a dead body or a fetus. So it does not matter if it's a fetus, if it's a human being, if it's a Native American prehistoric grave or whatever, you absolutely cannot move it without this authorization from the health department. The funny thing is when I was first at this job, I called the health department and they didn't even know they did that. Don't tell them I said that, though, because they're nice. 685508B, such authorization shall be issued by the state registrar to a licensed funeral director or person acting as such upon proper application. What we always say is if you are relocating a grave, we say if they're the 1920s or before, we suggest using an archaeology company. I have a whole list of archaeology companies that will do this. Their prices vary greatly. And I can't tell you which ones to use. You have to go and look at them yourself and, you know, do that capitalist thing where you like shop around. So who is allowed? Funeral homes can be used for any grave, actually. We just suggest that they use them for graves after the 1920s. And archaeology companies can move any grave, even modern ones. Walter Hines versus State. This was a very important precedent. It set precedent in Tennessee and across the nation. It's not completely included in Tennessee code yet, but I'm trying for that. One of the things that I do as part of my duty is every 5 years I have to issue a cemetery report. I work with the Cemetery Advisory Committee, and all of us go around and we analyze current law and things like that to see if we can come up with ideas that will make it more streamlined and less gray, because a lot of the laws are a gray area. And I'm sure the attorneys love that, but that's okay. I've had some attorneys drag out some things for a long time with these graveyards. I've got some that have been going on for years, and it's kind of a shame, really. But it defines interested party rights. The family, the interested party or family, I mean the government interested party people can do this too, but they have the right to maintain, repair, and beautify a cemetery. They don't define what those are, so that can be open to interpretation. It also says that they have the right of visitation. And this is a common call that goes across my desk all the time, is family members will feel like that they're being blocked from a cemetery, and I try to help them navigate that. I used to send letters to the landowners, like really nice letters, and explaining the law and things like that, but I'm not allowed to do that anymore. So that's okay. We found out that TDEC doesn't like it. So that's okay. I'll figure out a different way. The thing is one of the things that's really confusing to me is like, well, what are my options? I'm gonna have to tell the family member, well, if you're writing a letter to these people and these people aren't responding, I guess you just have to go call the police and get them to escort you out there, because I don't know another thing to do if I can't write a letter to them with a nice state letterhead that says, hey, we know what's going on out there. Or we've had this a complaint from a family member, or either that, or what I like to do mostly is if a family member is trying to get on the property and they can't reach the landowner, I'll just write a letter and connect them, which should be okay, but I don't know if it is or not. I'm still finding that out now. They also have the right of burial in a family or in a cemetery. The biggest problem that always comes across my desk is the cemetery full or not? And there is nothing in the law that says whether a cemetery is full or not. So the only way I know how to interpret that is if a cemetery has a definite boundary and it's been established, then that's, if it's set aside as a tax exempt plot and it has boundaries, that's a sort of way you could say, hey, that's the dimensions of the cemetery. Although I know this for a fact that property assessors a lot of times don't really pay a lot of attention to where they're putting the lines on the cemetery map. So you'll notice a lot of times it'll say a cemetery's over here, but if you look at the map, it's really over here. And that has caused problems. That caused a problem in Nashville where there ended up being 2 cemeteries that were being fought over. One of them was the one that the government said was there, and the other one was the real cemetery that actually existed, that wasn't in that area. That was a mess, and it's still a mess. It's still going on. A landowner cannot obstruct interested party visitation. Now, As a landowner myself, I fully understand you don't want everybody running around to the cemetery, because a lot of people, I remember this from being in high school, a lot of high school kids go out to the cemeteries and they're like, yeah man, this is spooky, yeah, you know, and they go out there and they might do bad things. I mean, I proposed to my wife in the cemetery at midnight. I probably shouldn't have done that, but I did, and she accepted.
We understand that.
You can only go up from there, right?
Exactly. A landowner also cannot desecrate. This also means plowing up headstones and using land for something else. The cemetery is a cemetery is a cemetery is a cemetery until it is petitioned not to be a cemetery. That doesn't matter if it's just a cemetery line on somebody's property or if it's set aside as a tax exempt plat.
Are you still married?
Yep.
It worked.
32 years. I mean, you know, you know how marriage is. I mean, it can go various ways at different times. But so far, I'm still okay. Other relevant precedents. Well, just to show you that Hines is used all across the nation, here are some major decisions in other states that the first thing that they did was they referred to Hines. Davis versus May, Texas, 2003, confirmed the right of ingress and egress for a family member. So that's one that's out there. McCoy versus Barr, Kansas, 2012, says that county employees are granted an easement to maintain a cemetery if they say want to. In Tennessee law, they are also able to do that. Rhodes versus Nicholas, Missouri, 1981. Relatives, I like this one. Relatives are granted the right to restrain an owner from interfering with the cemetery's purpose. Wow, what does that mean? Huh.
They didn't want somebody to get buried on it, in it, apparently.
Oh, I was going more deeper and saying, well, it's the right to carry states.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go
That's
see my
what I
cemetery.
think. Anyway. Stoker versus Brown is a Tennessee case, 1979. This one comes up from a lot of times because when you're looking for Tennessee law, well, here's another Tennessee precedent. In a nutshell, it basically stated, it's a really, really long court case, but in the end, what it says is a cemetery area is the same size it ever was, and I put on the end, even though it miraculously shrank somehow. Cemetery is a cemetery is a cemetery until it is petitioned not to be a cemetery. It's successful. You can't just sit there and go, oh, wow, man, I think I'll just take some of this cemetery. And then the cemetery gets smaller and smaller and smaller. It doesn't matter. Those graves are still out there and it's still a cemetery. And I've dealt with some of those before too. So why can't I plow up a cemetery? It's my land! Well, it might not really be. Call the Register of Deeds and confirm if it's actually set aside as a tax exempt plat. And this is one of the problems that happens with assessors a lot of times. A cemetery owner will set aside the cemetery as a tax exempt plat, and the assessor's office often does not put that he or she is the owner. Well, you know, they can still make rules for it and things like that if they actually own the cemetery. They've been doing better about that now, but if you look through the Tennessee property data site, you will notice that a lot of the tax exempt cemeteries have, it says the cemeteries own themselves, and that can't happen. According to the Treasury Department, every piece of land is owned by somebody. So all we could figure out when Joe Sanders was the attorney for TDEC, he and I talked about this a great deal, and the only thing that we could come up with is that if a cemetery doesn't have a designated owner in the land, and there's not a deed or something that says, hey, so-and-so is the property owner of the cemetery, then basically it falls onto the family members to, now they don't have to go and take care of it, but the fact of the matter is that they're by default not owners, but they're kind of like owners. That's why when you like are a landowner and you're next to one of these cemeteries that you don't own and a tree is about to fall, you've got to contact family members get a family member's one person's permission to take it down if that's what you want to do. Sometimes the family people will help. Anyway, so even if the cemetery is yours, you still must leave it alone. If you are a family member, there are things that you can do that just a regular landowner that doesn't have anybody buried in the cemetery can't do. And we'll talk about some of those things in a minute. There is a legal process for relocation, see TCA 46.4. And if the rules make you angry, blame English common law. And English common law for cemeteries developed from Roman common law. So we basically had some version of the cemetery law for 2,000 years or more. Okay? It's based on custom is what it was based on. And in 1911, Tennessee codified it. We tried to codify it. You can blame the First Amendment to the Constitution. A cemetery is considered a religious entity. And so it is a freedom of religion thing. There are lots of, I've fielded some calls where people were like trying to keep, as much as I hate to say it, white people keeping black people out of a cemetery that was a black cemetery, and they can't be. And I get involved in that too. You also should blame yourself for purchasing the land before you move along. It actually says in Hines that a landowner takes all this knowledge when they buy a cemetery, or buy a property with a cemetery on it, that they have to follow these rules. So, oh shoot, that didn't work. So what should I do if I'm a landowner? Well, follow the law. If you don't, you're going to lose. It's expensive and will take up your limited time on earth. Case in point, my wonderful family, my father-in-law, Big Daddy, bless his heart, he's gone now, but my, let's say, firecracker sister-in-law got mad at a neighbor down in Arkansas because they were parking the truck, incidentally, on their part of the property on this road. But Big Daddy had been told by the county when they closed the road, it's like, yep, that's yours now. You know, there was no paperwork that said that, they just said that. But the landowner that was next door had to use that to access part of his cemetery. So it wasn't Big Daddy's road. It was Big Daddy's and the other people's road. And what ended up happening, oh my gosh, it got stirred up, and they spent like $20,000 doing new surveys and all this other stuff, and guess what they found out? They found out that the road was mostly on the other guy's property. So be careful what you wish for. Be nice. Visitors may be annoying, and some are, I've talked to them, but try to work something out if they request access. Don't just do what you want and hope no one finds out, because if you do, interested parties will call me and I'll investigate, and my investigation will really annoy you. I'm all about annoyance. I have no power whatsoever, but I love finding ways to make walls come down. Visitor, be courteous, by gosh. There are many reasons a landowner is reluctant to have you on his or her property. If the landowner is a curmudgeon, be nice anyway and document everything. It doesn't go in your favor at all if you just get mad at the landowner and yell at him.
So you really can't constrain him.
I'm sorry?
You really can't constrain him or restrain him then.
Yeah. Well, it's just, and like I said, this isn't law. This is like just common courtesy.
Well,
That's how I was brought up.
But there could be a situation where the landowner says, no, that's the shortest route, but I'm giving you a route that will allow you to get to the grave, so I'm not restricting your access, but they can make it as hard as possible.
Well, and see, and this is where you run up against something with that. And this was another one up on the Cumberland Plateau. There was a landowner, and you could tell that what he was trying to do was block people from coming to the cemetery. What he did is he closed off the short route, and he says, oh, now the cemetery entrance is over there, and it turned out it was like a really bad road, nobody could walk up, and they had to have a four-wheeler even to access it and things like that. and they took care of that. What Hines says is they have the right to visitation of a cemetery from the nearest road at reasonable times in a reasonable manner. What that means, let the lawyers go with that. Follow the law. If you don't, you're only going to incur unwanted expenses and penalties if you're a visitor. In other words, don't go in the cemetery and say, hey man, I think I'm going to smoke a joint now. Because somebody could call you on that. I mean, is it respectful for the deceased? I don't know. It could be. Some deceased members might like it. But family members may not appreciate that. So, gosh, this was quick. I didn't mean to go this quick. I guess we got lots of time for questions. For more information, you can contact me, and that is not my correct number. I've got to change it. They just gave me a new number, but I've got it here and I can give it to you. The email is, I always answer emails. The reason why I like emails is because it gives me a paper trail. I get people that will call me and they'll talk to me for an hour, and it's like, I'll write stuff down and everything, but I get so many people to call me, it's like my pad just gets deeper and deeper with people, and then I end up like, I wonder who I talked to like 2 months ago about this, and I can't find them. So I really appreciate having the paper trail.
Got that Tom Hanks look going on there.
I'm sorry?
Got that Tom Hanks look going on there.
Oh, well, you know what they did?
He does, yeah.
My, my hair was long, and so they doctored it up.
Oh.
He says, hey, you want us to touch you up? I was like, sure, man, go ahead.
It's a hippie, always a hippie.
Well, I've had short hair before. Well, actually, this is my COVID hair. I literally, when I got to the Tennessee Historical Commission, I was there for a few months and then COVID hit. And so literally for a year at home, I did not have anything other than email contact with the people that I didn't know at the office. So it was kind of an interesting time. Tennessee Division of Archaeology, there's Phil Hodges' number and his email, and he's really good about answering. And now, since Ernest Tubb is saying thanks a lot, I will open it to questions. I'm sure you have lots and lots and lots of questions.
Can we turn the lights on?
Please.
Yeah, yeah, we only turn on. So, let me ask right off the bat. So if you want to visit a family grave cemetery, and the property it's on, they did finally, well, the family paid for fencing because they were letting the cattle run. But, and they had no choice. They were told they had to do that. But then the last time that I went, which was 15 years ago, because but anyway, and this is a very, very old cemetery. The owner, not the owner, the renter, the caretakers of the, yeah, they're living in the house, Anyway, I was told that you can visit it if you want, but I'm not putting the dogs up, and they were mean dogs. I mean, they had 4 or 5 nasty biting dogs.
You know what you can do? I'm
Call
not
the
even going to tell
police.
you what you can do.
Leash law in Tennessee.
Yep, there's a leash law in Tennessee.
Even on your, but it was on there, on,
Yeah, they cannot obstruct. It is a violation. What they're doing is they're keeping you from a religious ritual,
Okay.
and there is a state law that has to do with that, and it's I think it's a Class C misdemeanor.
okay.
So yeah, call the police if they won't let you. If they're like keeping dogs on you.
Yeah.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to say, but I'm not going to suggest it.
Pardon?
Nothing. I didn't say anything like that. I just thought it. How about that?
Yeah. I was picking you up.
Question.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You have a spot of land, say your farm, and you decide that you want to be buried there. What are the proper steps and how do you do it?
Yes, I can tell you about this because I've had this call several times. It depends on the locale's rules. They have a right to regulate burials, but generally speaking, if you're in a rural area outside a township, there is no law about that, except you just have to have a death certificate. I mean, you can declare. What I always suggest to people, and they do this, Because I tell them, I was like, well, if you want to like form a cemetery or a family cemetery or something like that, at least go to the assessor's office and get it set aside as
Assessor's
tax.
You get it, the dimensions and all that.
Yeah, and you can do that. Now, the sad story about it,
Behind the man's house. So
when
all
that,
of
you know, the
We
school
don't have
shooting in
zoning,
Nashville,
We don't have zoning, so.
the Covenant shooting in Nashville, this was something that was really heavy to me, but I actually got called by an agent of a family member that lost their daughter, and to ask, they wanted to know what the Davidson County rules were for burial on their farm. And they tried to call Davidson County people, and nobody could tell them where to go and everything like that. Well, I just happened to know. So I called the guy, and he told me, oh yeah, if you're in a rural part of Davidson County, we just have a rule that you have to have 5 acres or more to bury somebody on the property. And so I have no idea how that turned out, and you know, I felt really bad for the family, but that was something heavy I had to deal with.
I understand that you have some sort of designation for cemeteries that you can apply for.
Why, yes,
Can
absolutely.
you tell me how to do that?
So we have what is called the Historic Cemetery Register. The thinking behind it, first of all, Patrick wanted to have one because Alabama had one, because he worked at the Tennessee Historical Commission there at one time. But the fact of the matter is, what it's for. I mean, I already know there are 36,000 cemeteries in Tennessee because my map says so, because I spent a lot of time putting it in there. But how am I going to get histories of cemeteries if I cannot sit there and do histories for 36,000 cemeteries? There's no way. So what I do is I put the onus on people who actually want to see their cemetery recognized by the Tennessee Historical Commission as historic. They can even, at the end, they can buy a really hefty, nice sign that has our logo on it that says that we recognize this as
How
a...
much is it?
The sign is about $500.
Okay.
But it's the same, it's the same heft as like our state signs.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's nice.
And are the application forms online?
It is online. If you go to go to the Tennessee Historical Commission site and go to the cemetery program, there will be, it says cemetery map and register. The map and register, it's like you fill out a survey 123 form, but it's actually connected right to the map. So when you fill that out, I get a notice that says that somebody has applied for the register, and so I can go look at it.
I will send a link. I'm about 3/4 through with mine, and so to submit it. And I will reply all on the last email that
awesome.
Freddie sent out, and I'll give you the 2 links for his site. Because you just go on and you check your cemetery. Like I emailed him about the Melton Cemetery because he had it connected to a church, and it's not. It
Right.
is, but it's
I will
not.
do any kind of edits
And
y'all
and
need.
it
I
was.
want to do the special town cemetery.
Yeah, and then, but he immediately corrected it, and, you know, there's just so much information out there. And then it's just an outline of, you know, what you know about the history. It's got some certain requirements, who owns it, that kind of stuff. The hardest thing I had was finding documented, stories, references, oral histories.
Yeah,
So that's the hardest, but I
You just
think
have
I've
to
done
be
it.
creative about that.
Oh, I have.
It's like I say, I mean, you may not have an article about a cemetery, but you may have an article about the main guy who's in it, and that counts. You know what I mean?
I was gonna ask, is there a listing where you could go to, put it in DeKalb County, and find the listing of historic cemeteries that are registered?
That's a good point.
You have a list of all the historic.
Well, I certainly do have a list.
No, it's
though.
online though, right?
Is it?
Yeah, I
we
think
we
so.
have a line of all the ones that are on the register.
On the registry, yeah. But then you
But I
just
have a lot of information about other ones too.
you just have to go to his
Well,
map and
that's what I'm
pinpoint it.
wondering about, how many of the cemeteries that we talk about a lot in this organization are Tennessee historic, quote, Tennessee historic.
I don't know that there's any in DeKalb.
I don't know, but we could have hundreds if you want them.
You just have to submit them, Freddie, in your spare time.
Let me get
Well, I
you first.
appreciate that.
It's
I'll look at the
insane.
census study, we'll talk about that. But there are some like Eastview Cemetery
Yes.
that we talk about a
Insane,
lot.
yeah.
And then
Those
there's
need to be
African
done.
American cemetery that's located right beside that.
That's
And
what
see,
I
I
started
count
doing.
that, well, I mean, and that's the
That'll
thing.
probably count, there's a brick wall, but I mean, or a
Yeah,
rock wall.
they might be considered two different cemeteries, it just depends. It depends on how you wanna look at them.
And, you know, just look at, just thinking about those just outside the box, or the town cemetery here in Smithville.
Yeah.
Should be a historic cemetery.
That's what.
The same thing with Salem, I mean, it
Yeah.
should be a historic
Oh,
cemetery.
heaven, Jeff.
Largest cemetery in DeKalb County, it should be a historic cemetery with some of the earliest settlers of
Oh, absolutely.
DeKalb County being buried.
It would be a
You
slam
just
dunk.
have to show 50 years, that it's a cemetery for 50, yeah.
We've got a whole lot more than that at Salem.
Oh, I'm sure. Like I said, if I had 36,000 on the historical register, I'd be happy, so.
Do you know how many is in DeKalb County?
I'm sorry?
Do you have the map that shows you how many is in DeKalb County?
Not on
Actually,
me.
just cemeteries, not.
Oh, cemeteries?
historical.
Yes, actually, I do.
Is
Hold
there
on.
already marked historical already? Is that what you're saying?
I don't remember seeing, but I didn't look specifically.
I mean, if they're 50 years or older, I mean, they're all technically historical.
Right.
But, here, oh shoot, I didn't mean to do that. I was gonna show you all my,
Well, Mount Holly would be, Mount Holly's
Oh, yeah.
over 50 now too, so.
and see, some cemeteries are still active, and so they're both historic and
Well, the same thing
active.
around Mount Holly is one that was done by the Corps of Engineers
Oh, heaven, Jeff.
for the conglomeration of cemeteries. You don't, I don't know, Holly, if it was, there could be there.
We have people that were around the lake, and when they flooded the lake, they got moved to a certain Mount Holly cemetery. That's what we're talking about now.
Okay.
There's, you can tell the different sections from where they came from the lake.
All right, let me get your question, I'm sorry.
So I've got two questions.
Okay.
One goes on to the question earlier about historic times with the same cemetery. So we're in the process, we're waiting for two things. One, we're waiting for Tennessee grant, which is quote unquote, according to the latest email today. The awardees will be released any day now.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
waiting, I'm waiting.
Is this with the Tennessee 250?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So we submitted a grant, and when I say we, Smithville Cemetery Committee, for the cemetery to be scanned. And so the company that is gonna do it, and I said they're gonna do it because if we don't get the grant, there's already a commitment by the cemetery committee to go ahead and scan it. But the potential is there, although a lot of people don't think it is, that there may be graves that they discover when they scan that are outside the boundary,
Yeah,
which would put them under asphalt.
that happens.
And there is another cemetery across the road that will be included in our scan. So the question I have for you is if the company were to discover there are bodies outside, or cadavers outside, remains outside that,
In the ditch.
say again,
In the ditch.
in the ditch,
Across the street.
or that may have been there before the cemetery was even founded, the Smithville Cemetery.
Right.
So the question then becomes, do we notify your office for any reason?
If you notify me, I'm gonna notify other people.
No, that's what, so
Yeah.
that's number one. Number two, so, thank you, I got that.
Yeah, because I don't
Number
want
two,
anybody to not have their questions answered if I can help it.
So the second one is, I have property that I've inherited,
Mhm.
and there is a small graveyard on it with fence around it. When I was a child, I remember, going out on a track with my grandfather when I'd be visiting, and I've always known where it was. I know where it is today because of that historical memory. I just recently inherited that land, but it is so overgrown with trees that the question people normally ask is, why have they left those trees there? Well, I know why they're there, and eventually I plan to go in there and remove the trees as much as I can, just to, pay homage to whatever families are. But from what I can see, I have no record of anybody from the original owners of that cemetery that have contacted, or at least my father, when he owned the property.
Right.
And I don't know what happened with my grandfather, great-grandfather, et cetera. But I asked the question because the more I've gotten involved with this, you know, and I came out of the DC area where I've been for the last 30 years before I returned here. And there have been a lot of things where, you know, graveyards has mysteriously disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when outside of Richmond, Virginia, where all of a sudden now people realize it's there and it's bigger than they thought, which is of course affecting two things, interstate and industry.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to make sure that as I've grown in sensitivity to this, that what are my responsibilities other than to respect that there is a cemetery there and not to build anything within so much feet of it. So I can't build, but the farmers have always, including my great-grandfather, grandfather, et cetera, have always gone around that and planted.
Yeah.
So it's only structures, it's not planting.
So you're saying that on the cemetery there are structures?
Okay, on the cemetery, it's
Okay.
inside, no, on the cemetery, it's a cemetery.
All right.
It's got a fence around it.
Okay, so yes, it is fenced.
So there is no restriction other than going inside the fenced area of how close a farmer can.
I mean, they just have to be 10 feet from a
10 feet.
grave.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, the fence is there, and, you know, the people haven't, I haven't looked in a long time, so I don't know how far.
Well, and that's the thing, it's like if you don't know a grave's there, how do you know? And so, I mean, if you carry on as if there's not a grave there, it's when you start turning them up. If you start turning up like grave hardware or whatever, that's when you need to stop. But that's all we can do with developers as well. It's like if a developer, most developers will actually, at least in Davidson County, they'll leave a 30-foot buffer around the cemetery, just because they don't want that to happen. So it's just kind of one of those things. If you don't know it's there, you don't know it's there. But boy, when you know it's there, it's there.
Yeah, I have a question. I have an old cemetery in my place, and you said that you can't do anything within 10 feet of the grave. But what constitutes the boundary of the cemetery? Is it 10 foot off the grave? And that brings
That's a
up
good
that-
question.
Well, because of the right of burial. If the family has a right of burial, that cemetery could grow forever.
You're exactly right, and that's why I always say, hey, man, set it aside as a tax exempt plat so that it
So
has.
what I did was I used GPS to go around the boundaries,
Yeah.
close to the grave, but did I need to be 10 feet off every grave to establish that boundary of the graveyard? What I
Yep,
did was,
you do,
you do, so it's 10 foot square.
yeah.
But then what happens if somebody wants to get buried within that 10 foot boundary? Does the boundary then move out?
No, it shouldn't.
Okay, so then it becomes finite.
Right, it's like if it's got a boundary, it's got a boundary.
Okay, then the other question is, when my mother passed away, I buried her remains adjacent to this historic cemetery.
And you can do that.
Okay, so then does that change the dynamic of my right to the cemetery, to now I maintain?
Well, you're technically you're technically creating a new cemetery.
Even though it's right against?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the right way then to define the boundaries? I've gone around and I've done like this around, but then figure 10 feet off is what we don't want to touch.
Right. That's exactly right.
Okay.
You had a question, and I've got to come to you.
Can you help?
Can I help?
Someone, my husband and I, we have a cemetery on, well, it's my mother-in-law's property, which will go to my husband. And last year, we just, said enough is enough, and we started taking care of the cemetery. And we're cleaning it up and planting and one thing and another, but there's a report, and you may have done the report, that there's like only 32 people that are supposed to be buried there or something.
Oh, I don't. You know what, if you'll email me, I'll check all my
Okay.
information, and see what I've got
But
about it.
there's, down from it, there's sunken in places where that, you know,
It's more graves, probably,
yeah. And we, you know, we just need some help, we need some
Okay, well,
guidance.
I'm happy to help with that. One of the stories that I got, and this was a Rutherford County story too, actually, but there was a guy that brought his dream house property he was going to build his dream house on, and bless his heart, the people actually declared that there was a cemetery there. They just closed it, and so he signed that it was all right because in his mind there were 3 markers there, therefore there were only 3 burials. And I actually went out there with a family member, and there were probably 50 burials out there. And Rutherford County kept him from, they said, you've got to move your house design. Yep. I mean, I hated that for him.
How did you find the graves?
Oh, they were in lines and sunk.
Yeah.
Mm.
He found one back
You
last
just gotta
summer
stand
that
back and look.
Yep.
he told us about, and we went down there, and, I mean, this house is built as close as that wall over there to here. And they've got their little thing up, and, I mean, it's tent graves.
Oh, I love those.
And it's down on the lake, Four Seasons.
I will tell you this, and this is one of the conundrums that happens. A lot of times with African American cemeteries, they are poorly marked.
Yes.
And so if you're getting a property that you know has an African American cemetery on it and you think there are 5 graves, boy, you better get it checked out.
Chris has, what, 200
Yeah.
names so far?
It's like
It's,
sad,
yeah,
isn't it?
she's got 200,
Yeah.
where,
We
there's
just keep finding
probably
people, dead
25
certificates,
headstones at most.
Yep.
You know,
We're working on
That's
Very,
the one
very
right
common.
beside the one that's maintained by the city of
yeah.
Alexandria. So,
Alexander,
Is there some way that you can go over the ground
Mhm.
and?
oh, yeah.
Yeah, ground
Is that
penetrating
really
radar.
speed?
Yes, it is.
And I have a list of people that do that, and like I said, their costs vary widely.
Oh, my God.
There are some people on there that are reasonable, and I mean, it depends on what you know, it's a service kind of thing. It's like you can pay, if you pay a lot of money for it, by gosh, you better get, you know, a good report and all this other stuff.
But there's people that will do it
Yeah.
reasonable.
Yes, and anybody that does it that doesn't do it right is not on my list. And I've had that happen. I've had to throw.
We can
people
email
out.
you for that list?
Yes.
Okay,
you can
good.
email me for
I'll
that.
do that too.
Yes, sir.
It's gonna sound strange, but what I found works for identifying the graves and how I actually figured out the size of my cemetery. Just go out after a light snow, just a dust,
Interesting.
and you can see all the impressions that wouldn't be obvious when you walk
That's what
by.
Tommy Webb always said.
That's something new for me.
That's
Thank you.
But it works.
No,
Yeah.
That's cool.
Like I said, it's like what knowledge I don't have, y'all have, we share knowledge and we all work together. That's,
the
so,
drone technology too is good now.
Right.
You can look right there at that drone.
That's pretty
In the
interesting.
winter time, it's kind of different later than it does in the spring too, you know, and you see the graves where you got a hump in the middle and, you know, you're like, we ran into a situation today, and I'll show you pictures, oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'll get you after, or go ahead.
We ran into a situation today, we had a burial today here in the county in one of the well-known cemeteries, it has a lot to go in it. And I take pictures for Find a Grave.
Mhm.
So I take the picture standing at the stone, the boy is buried in his mother's grave. And I go to his son's memorial, which was put in about 2020. And I had taken a picture the day he was buried. We're comparing them, they're the same, there's no difference. It looks like he is buried on top of his son. The dirt, the placement of the stone behind where the grave was dug and everything, and it was like
Pictures show it in 6 years.
6 years there.
It's the same.
He said it's the same grave, and I said, no, it is not. My phone takes dates, puts it on the pictures, I have the dates on pictures. So I was just blown away that I found that.
Yeah, that's always, you know, it's a military cemetery, so it's, but my dad and my mom's buried on top of my dad. Of course, we all knew who ruled our
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Not my mom, so she could rule it up. But the fact of the matter is yeah, there can be graves on top of graves. It gets really, really, really confusing with family stuff. I don't know what to say about that. I do know what to say is if you are doing that, don't disturb the other one.
It's my understanding that if you're gonna do that, like at Arlington Cemetery,
Uh-huh.
they dig down so far.
Right.
And you're right,
So
there's
they
always an
bury-
argument in the family, they're gonna be buried between husband and wife, who has to die first.
You have to die first. I'm in charge.
So they dig 6 feet, 6 or 7 feet or something big.
Which, and I will tell you this, as far as historic cemeteries, 6 feet under is a suggestion.
Yeah,
It's hardly ever that.
yeah, 4.5 feet.
Matter of fact, when they buried my father-in-law, I could have sworn the grave was, it's like, I was like, man, they didn't go very deep. And I did ask the grave digger because he dug it by hand, and he said it took 4 hours. So. Every grave digger I've talked to said that you dig it by hand. It's like, yeah, it's about 4 hours.
Yep. I'll test for that.
You?
You bet.
Oh wait, not you, you. Yes.
We're from Murfreesboro,
Uh-huh.
and we saw a picture of Steve Prim.
Yes.
And how did that wind up panning out?
It wound up,
Costco and everything.
they had to do a relocation petition, and they actually relocated the cemetery on another place in the property. So the cemetery moved, per se. Now, did the graves get marked properly back? I can't answer that question. John Loden might be able to answer it, or somebody. I don't know.
I was just curious, I knew Steve.
I had this thing, it's like I get started and then I never nobody ever tells me what happened. Some people do, but that's just kind of one of the things that goes on. I mean, like, even with relocation petitions, nobody ever sends me, okay, well, this was relocated to this cemetery, and I'm just like, okay, well, last time I checked, they were gonna relocate them here. You might wanna call so-and-so, so-and-so, and see if they did.
Would that not make a difference on your map? I mean, would you not need to know that?
If it's a grave, not, because I do, if it's a cemetery, like for instance, the Rutherford County Cemetery we're talking about, I did move it on the map,
Okay.
because I did find out about it. But like, usually, like when they relocate a grave, they have to relocate it to another cemetery, or at least another area. Those people like
So-
to do them at a different
Okay.
cemetery, but that cemetery is already on the
Already on the
map.
map.
Yeah. Bob,
I
you got a
just thought that
question?
might-
No questions?
People die, they get buried.
Yes, they do.
Now they get cremated, and who knows where they end up.
And that's a weird part of state law that's coming around too. Is it's very confusing about the cremations, because I have found one place in the law that says that if you bury an urn, it doesn't count, but then in other places it just seems to count. So I'm not sure how to deal with
Count for
that.
what?
As a burial.
Oh.
It makes it really
Well,
hard.
But if they put a tombstone
Yeah.
over
Well-
it, wouldn't that count?
I mean, I would consider it a burial.
Yeah, that's what I consider.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
And that's what I'm
you got
gonna
a tombstone
advise.
But
there.
it is human remains.
Well, it is a human remains. That's why I would consider it a burial.
I find this every day now, because we have 2 funeral homes, 3 really, but we have 2 that are burying a lot of people, 252, 270 a year in DeKalb County.
Mhm.
A lot of them are being cremated. A lot of them are saying, well, they're private burials and they didn't want nobody to know it, or it's a cremation, but then they bury it later on. So then you go and you find the tombstone in the cemetery. Well, I've tried for 40 years now to make sure that we have all these books out there that has everybody in DeKalb County that's been buried in the last 1,500 years. So it's really making my job
Oh, I'm
really
sure it makes
hard.
it extremely
It's hard
hard.
because, and he can tell you, sometimes I walk 5 cemeteries in one day. My computer's blown up with photos of headstones trying to place somebody. You know what I'm talking about? And it's to the point that I'll call funeral home, well, they died. And, or,
It was a
Man, it's
it's a private ceremony now, it's a private burial. Well, I need to know, but it's supposed to be public knowledge, but
Well,
they won't give
they
it to
are,
me.
they're working on a law right now, and it's probably gonna pass, where at least they've addressed with commercial cemeteries that they have to GPS locate the graves and tell who's in it.
Because we've got people in one that they don't even know who are in graves, you
Exactly
know?
right.
They don't even know, they're saying, the grave digger said, oh, well, I didn't even know there was a grave there. Well, if you kept your books right, you know,
I know, and man, I get calls all the time, like, especially those large cemeteries in Memphis. I mean, usually the funeral homes would be the only people that have the record, and a lot of times they don't. So, I mean, I don't know what to say about that. Except that if they pass this law, dadgummit, and that law was actually something that the cemetery committee and I had suggested, as well as the other one that they're passing. I was like really surprised that it popped up on the docket. So. Maybe we're making some progress, I don't know.
You ever been to the cemetery down in Key West?
No,
It's pretty cool.
I bet it is. Key West is cool.
And New Orleans too.
Yeah, New Orleans, I have seen
Yeah.
cemeteries.
Yeah, they're,
But Key West is really cool.
Right, I've not seen those in Key West. I would like to someday.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody have any answers? That's, that's the worst part about cemetery law. Other states have very specific cemetery laws. Virginia does. In fact, one of the things that I'm trying to get the legislature to pick up is, and of course, when I worked at the museum, Miranda wouldn't let me talk to anybody. So that's okay. I forget it. But that's one of the things that we're trying to work on now is getting those, like in Virginia, they have rules for landowners and rules for visitors. And it's like spelled out specifically of what's expected from them. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping that we can get in Tennessee law, so it'll make it a little more clear. We'll see. They haven't picked it up yet, but.
Graham, should you send me a copy of the PowerPoint? I'll distribute that
Absolutely.
PowerPoint.
You can distribute it
to everybody on
anywhere.
our list. We get a copy of the PowerPoint from Todd.
Absolutely, I'd be very happy with that. I also, just to let y'all know, I have up here, we have our new couriers. I didn't know how many people were going to come tonight, so I'm not sure how many I've got. But this is the brand new courier from our office, and I've got a big article in it as well. And then I have these nice little handouts that I usually give at when I'm doing cemetery workshops or whatever. But they're just like it's like a, I'm going to tell you a lot about this too, because a lot of these on here, if you go look at the 1906 Sears catalog, yeah, you'll see some of this stuff in there. But there is, online, there's a 1906 Sears catalog. It's just for monuments. And you'll see a lot of very familiar
We've got one of those, at the very bottom, we've got one of those.
One of these.
One right there, right there.
Yep.
We've got one of those.
So now, I have not seen any ghosts yet, but I will tell you this. We had a workshop in Knoxville, and it was Jonathan Appel, the nationally known guy, one of the 5. But anyway, we went through this cemetery, and there were all these obelisks that were like toppled and everything like that. And he just said, well, hey, let's do this one. So we're like, yeah, okay, let's do this one. And so we took the whole half a day or whatever to get it all back right and everything the way it was supposed to be, with conservator specs and everything like that. So we didn't use any cheap stuff, but that's all right. But the interesting thing is when we finished, when we all stepped back and we were so proud, we looked at it and it was the guy's birthday.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my.
We were like, huh.
Happy birthday.
That's cool.
But I haven't seen any ghosts other than that.
That was neat.
That's cool. Happy birthday to you.
I have a question for you. You know, there's this, I think it's called the Larkspur Society or something, this modern movement for burials where you have a natural burial that puts you on the ground, pile brush on you, and like you
Huh.
it back into the earth. I think it's called the Larkspur Society.
Larkspur. Yeah, my son is friends with the guy that owns that.
Is that legal?
Yeah.
So you have an above ground burial?
I guess so.
And 10 feet away from any structure.
Yeah. Yeah, Larkspur is, matter of fact, that's one of the things that we've been talking about. Do we want to go? Of course, I don't know. I still like the body farm idea that Nick Fielder had. But
Yeah.
Could you add that kind of burial to the existing cemetery? Or does that have to be in a designated place?
that's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. But I'll find out. Because dadgummit, I need to know. Because if I get that question again, I want to be able to answer it. Well, I really appreciate it tonight. I hope that I stayed long enough. Did I? Okay. But anyway, I'm here. I've got cards up here. The phone number on the card isn't right, but I've got the phone here that has the number on it, and I haven't memorized it yet. So if y'all need to write it down, I can just pull that out and do it. Like I said, I do better by email, but I answer every email that I ever get, so as quickly as I can.
And it's the Graham.Perry.
Graham.Perry@tn.gov, yes.
Was that your correct phone number up there?
No, it was not. I need to change that. I should have done it today when I was getting ready, but I forgot.
And what about the space burials? Do you have any space burials?
Well, I don't know. I'm just like, I don't know if Tennessee, I mean, is it kind of like mineral rights? Do you go all the way up into space?
No, there's several companies that they start at $5-6 grand to go up.
I wouldn't
They'll
mind.
send you right
Space
up.
would be good.
Cremated.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good
yeah.
enough for Scotty, it's
Well,
good enough for me.
Yeah.
By the time you get up there, how do you know if you're in Tennessee or Russia?
No, I'm really happy to be here today. I'm glad